While devastating bushfires have taken hold in Mediterranean tourist hotspots, Australian authorities are renewing warnings that we could be underprepared for the fire season ahead. The return of hot, dry conditions under a looming El Nino means some are describing Australia as a powder keg primed for a disastrous fire season on steroids. The Prime Minister yesterday said, while it's critical to be prepared, he said that definitively ruling out another horror fire season would be defying science.
No politician who's serious can stand and say that they can guarantee that there will never be a natural disaster again in this country.
For more on this, joining us is former New South Wales Fire and Rescue Commissioner and Climate Council author Greg Mullins. Greg, really appreciate you joining us. Thank you. What do you think we could be in for here in Australia for the upcoming fire season? Is there actually any way to know this early out as to just how severe it could really be?
Well, look, really, there is no way to know for sure, but we can look at history, and history tells us that after every triple La Nina event, which we've just been through, we've immediately swung back to high bushfire risk. So 1957, the Blue Mountains in New South Wales, hundreds of buildings lost. 1977, again in the Blue Mountains, around 49 homes lost. And then 2001, 2002, the Black Christmas fires after another triple La Nina. So look, history says we'll go back to fires. We will almost certainly have major grass fires because those heavy rains have led to prolific growth. And look, the other part of this puzzle is that we haven't been able to do hazard reduction burning as we normally would in the cooler months because it's been too wet, 3 years of wet weather. So we're really playing catch up. And looking at the Northern Hemisphere, the heat waves, the fires, it's a bit of a portent for things to come, unfortunately. That heat is likely to come to the Southern Hemisphere because the oceans are extremely warm.
Yeah, look, it is terrifying watching those scenes, particularly over in Greece at the moment, and I think scenes, unfortunately, that are very familiar to a lot of Australians here at home. When are we likely to see that fire season start? Have we seen a big change in terms of the traditional fire season, when it kicks off and when we see a heightened risk of fires?
Well, yes, we have. Over the decades, I've been a firefighter since 1971, and my father was a volunteer firefighter before that from the 1940s. And the fire seasons are closer together. There's less time between the bad fire seasons, and they're longer, sometimes by months. Now, that's climate change in action. There's no question about that. There's numerous studies that have looked directly at Australian fire seasons, and this is off the back of climate change. So we've had massive fires here, Canberra 2003, Black Saturday 2009, and then Black Summer 2019-20, the worst fires we've ever experienced, with more property damage than ever before because of the hottest, driest year ever recorded. So look, are we going back into a Black Summer? Probably not, unless it just dries out and gets extremely hot for months, because those fires are off the back of a drought. Hopefully there'll be some moisture in the ground for this fire season that'll keep the tree canopies green, but we will definitely get fires. We're going into a warm, dry period. It'll be more like a normal summer, and there will be days, I'm sure, of extreme and sometimes catastrophic fire weather. So people need to get prepared.
And how should they do that, Greg? I mean, you mentioned earlier that we haven't been able to do as much hazard reduction or prescribed fuel burning as we might have liked to because of that wet weather. What else can people be doing around their own homes, around their own properties in these colder months to try and prepare?
Look, the main thing is talk to your local fire services, because they know the conditions and they know about your particular situation, and they'll give great advice about what to do. But simple things like clearing flammable materials away from homes, clearing the roof gutters of leaves, keeping them clear. They're very simple measures that people can do to keep their homes safe. And listen to the warnings. And if there's catastrophic fire danger forecast for the next day, you might choose not to be in your home if it's in a precarious position. You might go into a bigger town or city or get out of there. So listen to the fire services. Don't be complacent. We've had 3 years of wet weather, and always in the past it's swung straight back to severe bushfires. So we need to be careful this summer.
Greg, in terms of policy on this front and resourcing our fire services, are we in a good, strong position on that front? I know there are always calls for more resources to be thrown at various sections of our forces, whether that be police or fire or rescue. But what's your position on how we're doing on that front?
Well, look, it's a case of the fire services have probably never been better prepared and funded because there were a range of inquiries, the Royal Commission, state and territory inquiries into the Black Summer bushfires, and by and large, the state and territory governments and the federal government have put more money in. We're better off in terms of firefighting aircraft, but even with that, we have to share the large firefighting aircraft with the Northern Hemisphere, and we can see what's going on there. Our fire seasons now overlap because climate change has lengthened not just our fire seasons, but fire seasons in America, for example, and Canada, where hundreds of Australian firefighters are assisting right now. So they mightn't be able to release those aircraft. And the reality is climate change is out of control. Governments worldwide are not taking it seriously, are not reducing emissions. Scientists around the world have been screaming the warnings from the rooftops for decades, and we're seeing the result. And natural disasters far more frequent and far more damaging than they were in the past. And a lot of people probably don't know, but heat waves are the biggest killer in terms of natural disasters. And look at the heat waves in the Northern Hemisphere. We could be in for the same sort of thing our coming summer. And it's quite likely, I'm told by scientists, that we will be. So some things you just can't prepare for. And it really comes back to the base cause. The planet's too hot because of the burning of coal, oil and gas, and we must stop.
Greg Mullins, really appreciate your insights after such a long career focusing on these issues. Really appreciate your time. And look, we all hope we won't see these sort of scenes we're seeing overseas at the moment repeated over the Australian summer. But as you say, we need to be prepared. Thanks so much.